Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Umar Suleiman, Kafinta, and I'm here to present a paper for ISCUUM2020, and the title of the paper is a corpus-based analysis of verbal transitivity processes in Aliyu Kamal's Hausa boy novel. Basically, this study apply a corpus-based methodology in investigating the transitivity processes as they project in the Hausa boy novel of Aliyu Kamal. And this is done with a specific reference to the verbal transitivity process. So transitivity processes are part of the ideational metafunction, and the ideational metafunction is part of the three metafunctions identified by Halliday, which are the interpersonal, the textual, and the ideational. The ideational metafunction is the content function of language realized in transitivity processes, and they are used to create experiential meaning that deals with how structures and events are coded in language. Verbal transitivity process are clauses of saying, for example, to speak, to announce, to promise, to ask, and so on. In a narrative text like this one, they are used to create dialogic passages which are used to develop accounts of dialogue and help in developing the plot of a story. Material processes, on the other hand, are processes of doing and usually involve an entity doing a thing and another entity that is being affected by the doing, and it usually involves, it can sometimes express a change in location or quality. So the methodology adopted for this study is the corpus-based methodology, as earlier mentioned, and I adopt the descriptive research design in order to construe a holistic approach that captures all the manifestations of transitivity as they are projected in the novel. The frequency of the processes were investigated, and the tenses were also investigated and compared. So in acquiring the data, I utilized the maximum variation sampling technique. 5 chapters out of the 40 chapters of the novel were selected from the beginning, middle, and the end of the novel. The corpus compiled for the study is named HBC. And in the data analysis, I used corpus analysis software Langbox 4.0 developed by the University of Lancaster, and it can be downloaded free from their website. And from there I use the corpus part of speech tagging to sort out all the verbs occurrences in the novel, and after that I sorted out the verbs projecting the transitivity processes. So here we have our result from the data. We have a total number of 265 transitivity processes. We have 111 material transitivity processes, which represent the process with the highest frequency. Then the second process with the second highest frequency is the verbal, and we have a total number of 90 clauses, but we only used 52 for analysis because they are the process that have full participants or at least one participant. The remaining 38 are only verbiages. The verbiage is a content clause, the clause containing the content message of the verbal transitivity processes. So we ignored them for analysis. But all in all, they represent 34% of the transitivity processes found in our corpus. And the least is the existential process, with only 5 hits, representing 2%. So in identifying the tenses that are used in projecting the transitivity process, we discovered that the writer used a wide range of tenses for narrative effect, and so as to be able to project his own knowledge or what he is trying to communicate to the readers. So therefore, the simple past tense have the highest frequency in projecting verbal processes in the novel, and this is followed by the simple present, represented by the VV code verb in the tagging system applied. Then the past participle also has a significant appearance in the novel. So as it is revealed from our data, dialogues tend to serve different purposes within a narrative text, and we can see this in terms of how diverse we have in mixing different tenses types in the verbal clauses we have within the corpus. And the verbal process have more diverse tense types in projecting it, because sometimes the author can decide to narrate a verbal process that happened in the past or that is currently happening during a particular narrative instance. So therefore, that is the reason why we see a mix up in the different types of tenses, not only in the past, because the material process in our data is mainly projected in the simple past. Many of them are projected in the simple past, but it's a different case looking at our verbal transitivity process. So in conclusion, we can see that this study is associated to the fact that the author is concerned with narrating his story through dialogue and representation of characters, rather than presenting us with the thoughts of the characters through mental processes, which can be another topic of a research on its own. The mental process presents us with inner thought of characters, but the verbal process, on the other hand, presents us with outer, when that thought has been put into action by mentioning it out. So the author is just concerned in projecting us with the outside thoughts of our characters rather than their mental state of being. Another important finding is the disparity in the frequency of the tenses construing the processes, the verbal process. Since it has been established that tenses is the temporal relationship between event and time, the simple past tense represented by the VV code have the highest frequency in the corpus, with a total hit of 205, out of which 35 are verbal processes verbs. So generally, despite being a narrative genre, there must be a combination of the use of most verb tense forms in English due to the presence of dialogue and presentation of many other processes. Therefore, the dialogues constructed in the text serve different purposes. So we find tenses like the simple present or even non-finite verbs to construe future happenings or events that are happening simultaneously. So let me conclude by saying that studying other transitivity processes will shed us more light in how the writer uses these processes to pass his message across. Thank you for listening.